Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the second game of the knockout portion of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Chess Tour being held in Paris. Now, in the knockout phase, in the quarterfinals, I'm facing Arjun Erigaisi, the very talented Indian player and currently number 4 ranked player in the world. We had a very topsy-turvy first game, which ended in a draw. Today, we're back with the second game. If it is decisive, either myself or Arjun moves on to the semifinals, and if it is a draw, we go to tie breaks. So, without further ado, let's jump into the action. Now, in this game, I have the white pieces. As always, the players are discussing ahead of time, and today there was a very spirited discussion about this position, which was position number 73 of Fischer Random Chess. Now, as usual, Jan Nepomniachtchi had his ideas. He was arguing that white should play e4 on move 1, and after c5, white should play knight c3, followed by ideas like f4 and queen to e3. Now, I don't know if Jan had looked at this exact position, but his argument was that the queen belongs on e3. You activate it very early, and you castle the king. Now, Jan liked e4. Some of us weren't as sure. We thought that maybe f4 is a move to try and attack the pawn on a7. c4 is a move. However, none of us considered the actual best move in the position, which is 1b4, with the idea of playing knight to b3 and developing the horse. So, at the start of the game, Jan blitzed out e4 in his second game against Vincent Keimer. Everybody else was taking a bit more time. However, ultimately in my game, I decided not to go for e4, and the main reason I didn't was basically intuition. It had nothing to do with Jan's comments from yesterday or being wrong about the position. It was basically a situation where when I thought about it more and more and what he liked, I was very concerned that after a move like c4 here, you have this very sage pony on a1 that can never get into the game very easily. Additionally, black can go all in here with the move f5 here, and after takes, queen takes a2, knight to b3, and queen takes b2. It's anybody's guess what is going on. Black is already up one pawn. Black is going to castle on the next turn, and all this is very, very unclear in general. Now, actually, the move here was, castle is not queen takes b2. You have a weak pawn on f5, weak pawn on b2, and I didn't know what was happening. Now, keep in mind, the match situation is such that you kind of want to have some control over the game because since I drew the first game, it's not a situation where I need to go all in. So ultimately, I played the move c4, which was also played by my compatriot Fabiano Caruana against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and now we get the move c5. Here I go f4. And after I play this move f4, now we get the move d6. I play d3, we get knight c6, knight c3, and now we get the move f5. Here I play knight c2, we get knight c7, queen f2, queen f7, castles, castles. And as you will probably notice, we are playing the classic mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, as we are playing the exact copycat opening. Now here I played the move e3. It's worth pointing out that in the game between Fabiano and Maxime, which was a few moves ahead of my game, they also played this setup. Now, I did briefly consider this move pawn to e4 here, but I wasn't really sure what was going on after e5. It's very chaotic here. There are a lot of trades in the center of the board. At any rate, I couldn't calculate the whole line, and I decided that I would follow Fabiano and play e3 instead. We get e6, and now I play this move pawn to d4. Now, at this point in the game between Fabiano and Maxime, Maxime would lash out violently with this move g5 on the king side. He would get a very bad position, a couple of moves, and go on to lose, which would put Fabiano in the semifinals. Now, Arjun is known as the madman. However, he controls himself here, and instead he plays a much more logical move, bishop to f6, putting pressure on the diagonal. Now, in this position, I play the move bishop to f3, and here Arjun plays queen e7. Now, this is a very, very critical moment because, as you will notice, I have a bit of this big white center with the pawns on d4 and c4, but Arjun has come up with a very sensible setup where he wants to put the bishops on f6 and f7, and then bring the rooks to the center of the board. So here I play the move rook to d1, Arjun goes bishop f7, and now I play the move queen to e2 relatively quickly. Now, it's very tough when your opponent's playing the copycat. It's a very closed position here, not a whole lot happening. We have very similar piece placement, and I kind of blink first in this position when I play queen e2. Now, the reason I play queen e2 is I don't want to get too low on time, and I figure after queen to e2, I'm simply going to go bishop f2, and we have our queens on the same squares, bishops on the same diagonals, and it remains very balanced. However, I missed a big opportunity here to claim the advantage in the position with pawn takes pawn, trading the bishop for the knight, and then playing this move e4. Now, I did actually consider this idea during the game, but what I missed is that if black plays move e5 here, white has a very nice move, knight to e3, putting pressure on the pawn on f5, and after takes, and queen to e5, queen takes f4, white is actually up a pawn here and doing very well due to this great horse on f5, which can jump every which way with the classic L shape, and white should be better. But again, without knowing, very hard to play this, and I decided instead to play the move queen to e2. Now we get to move d5, and here I spent nearly 16 minutes before playing the move b3. Now this is really the first very critical position of the game. As you'll notice, it's the exact same position, but once I play bishop to f2, you'll notice something, which is that now we have the copycat, but I'm actually down a tempo here as I have the rook on d1, whereas the rook on c1 would be better placed. I'd ideally like to have this position where my rooks are on d1 and c1 on the two files. So I spent a lot of time, and ultimately I played the move b3 here after a long think. The reason for this move is that I simply could not come up with something which made sense, and as my clock was burning, I was spending more and more time. It just seemed like a practical way so that I could play the next couple of moves very quickly. However, what I should have done is I should have traded the pawns on d5, and after takes, b4, and queen to b6, b5, knight e7. Position is very, very balanced here. I actually didn't want to go into this because I saw bishop b4, d4 with the idea of bishop c4, attacking the queen and the rook on the diagonal. I couldn't calculate the whole line, didn't feel like enough to play for more, so finally, losing my thoughts and all these different variations, I decided to play b3. Now we get the move rook f d8 from Arjun. I play bishop f2. This is probably the last moment where what I should do is simply trade once again, but I wasn't really sure what was going on in this structure. You'll notice black has the isolated pawn on d5 here, but black is starting to play d4, and also my pawn on e3 is a serious weakness as well. So after rook f d8, I play the move bishop to f2, and now Arjun plays the move knight to a5, and here I play the move knight a4. Now, I spent 12 minutes on this move. The main reason I played this is already here I was very worried that I would be worse in this position. I could have traded the pawns, but after bishop to e1 and c4, I wasn't really sure what was going on in the structure. Computer apparently thinks white is better here, but I wasn't really sure because his backwards pawn on e3 is always a target, and I don't really have a clear-cut plan on the queen side here. Something like rook to e8, maybe even something like g5 here. I just wasn't sure what's going on. So ultimately, I play a lazy move, knight to a4, again, trying to avoid getting too low on time here, and now Arjun starts to take over the initiative. We trade on c4, he trades on d4, and now he finds the brilliant move, knight takes c4. Now, I did see knight takes c4 when I played the move knight a4, but I actually underestimated how dangerous this would be for me. So I go bishop takes pawn. Arjun plays rook b8, and now I play the move knight c5. Now, as a sign of the fact that I was starting to miss stuff, initially I went to reach for the bishop to play bishop f3, but fortunately, before I grabbed the bishop, I spotted that Arjun has this nice move, knight to b2, forking the rook and the knight, and after the trade, black gets the kebab on the second rank. Rook is pinning everything here, and it's a very, very dire situation as my pawn on d4 here, pawn on a2 are both weaker than this pawn on e6. So I play knight to c5. Now here Arjun plays knight d6, I drop the juicer back, and we get the move knight d5. Now at this point, I could feel things were going wrong. It's a very, very dangerous situation since it is a match. If I slip up for even one move or I get too low on time, things could spiral out of control. I could lose the game and the match as well. So I played the move queen to d2 here. Now, my initial intention was to trade the bishop for the knight here and play this endgame, but the problem with this situation is that it's a two-result game. Arjun has the two Bs here. He also is getting a bastion on e4 or c4, and ultimately, I will have zero chances of ever winning this game. If I defend well, I can probably draw, but with no chance of winning, why do I want to put myself in a situation where I'm going to suffer on the board, I'm going to suffer on the clock, and there will be nothing but many angsty moments, and my time will be an issue towards the end of the game. So, I play queen to d2 here, moving the queen to guard the pawn. Worth pointing out, if I play a move like g3, black has knight c3, and now the knight forks the queen and the rook, and black will win the game. So I go queen d2. Arjun plays knight c4, I go queen c1, and now we get to move queen d6. Now at this point, I was really, really concerned about the position. You have these knights here on d5 and c4. They're really, really jumpy here. I wasn't sure what I'm doing, and therefore I played the move g3. Now I had a feeling at this point in the game that I was in real trouble, but I thought g3 made sense as I guard the pawn. I could have spent 10 to 15 minutes here looking for a better solution, but ultimately I go for the practical move. Now, what I should have played here is a very obvious human move, knight to a1. I'm being very sarcastic when I say human. And after knight to a1, it's actually not all that bad as I'm attacking the horse. And if the horse goes back to b6, now I can play g3 guarding the pawn. And after, say, rook c8 and knight b3, these knights on b3 and c5 are also very well connected. So I go g3, and here Arjun plays the move rook dc8 after a 4-minute think, and this is probably the last critical moment where Arjun had great chances to win the game. Now, what happened here, I think, is that both Arjun and myself, we kind of suffered this mutual blindness where we both saw knight c3. You'll notice we have all of D's knights on the c file here. And after white plays rook d3, there's the move rook to b1 here. Now the queen is trapped. If the queen moves to any of these squares here, the knight on c4 will capture it. And after knight b7, black takes on c1. You get rook c1. Queen b6, and now after rook takes c3 and knight d2, knight takes d8, takes, and the move queen takes d8. Black is much better here, even though white has 2 rooks for the queen because of the 2 b's and the fact that I'm missing my fianchettoed bishop on this diagonal, so black should be able to eventually win the game. But Arjun plays rook dc8, and as soon as he played this move, I didn't really know why this wasn't the best move, but I could sense that the danger was starting to dissipate, and here I played the brilliant move knight to e1, I should say, not knight ce1. And the reason this move is so good is if I'm able to relieve the pressure in the middle of the board and get my knight to d3 here, I'm going to have my own set of D's knights in the center. I can jump to e5, and black will simply not have anything in return. So Arjun goes knight b2. Now, of course, you'll notice at this point, I am still down 8 minutes on the clock, but once I play knight e1, my moves become a lot easier. I don't have to worry about any flash tactics, and now I try to focus on my plan of improving the knight on e1. I go rook d2, Arjun plays queen b6, and now I play the move rook to c2, trying to break any threats on the c file. Additionally, if black plays a move like h6, this would be a huge blunder because now I have knight to d7, and after rook takes rook and queen takes, the knight is forking the queen, the rook, and the bishop, and white will win material and the game in turn. So Arjun goes queen d8. Now I play the move queen d2. It's pretty funny here. The computer wants this move bishop to h1, or actually initially it wanted bishop h1. Now it changed its mind. For a split second, it said bishop h1 was winning for white, but apparently it changed its mind in this position. But I decided to play the move queen to d2. Now you probably might be wondering, isn't this a free pony on b2? It is not, because after takes, black can sack the rook with rook takes knight. And now if I were to capture the rook after bishop takes queen, I'm down a queen for a rook and I lose the game. So I go queen d2. Here we get to move queen to e8. Apparently in this position, g4 or knight g2 are better. But again, I'm trying not to get too low on time, so I play queen d2. Arjun goes queen to e8 here. Very important move as he's trying to release the horse so it doesn't get captured, and black keeps the balance. So I go queen e2. Arjun plays knight a4, and now I play knight e to d3, finally activating the horse. And here Arjun plays the move knight to c3. Now, in my opinion, this move from Arjun is simply a situation where he's losing the objectivity of what's going on in the game, because here you can sort of sense that white is starting to get played. There's weakness on e6. My knights are well placed. Knight can jump to e5. As a top player, you have to be objective and sense that maybe the chances of winning have slipped away here, even if you feel like you had something earlier. Now, of course, Arjun, he has not been invited to a lot of tournaments, unfortunately, or the elite tournaments, so he's had to play a lot of opens. And I think this really worked against him in this game, because when you're playing open tournaments against players who are 2600, 2650, sooner or later, if you're a 2750 plus player, they're probably going to make blunders. They're not going to be accurate for the whole game, and you can kind of just keep the game going forever and ever and ever, and eventually you'll probably be rewarded. So Arjun decides to play knight c3. Now, had he traded the knights on c5 here, after knight takes c5 and h6, let's say I go rook e1, maybe white can argue that there's a very tiny advantage here, but the rook's on the c file, the b file, combined with the pressure on the pawn on d4, ultimately, I think the game would have ended in a draw. Arjun instead plays knight c3. Now I go queen d2, we get knight to b5, and here I play the move rook to e1, threatening to capture the knight due to the pin of the queen. Arjun goes knight c7, and now I play the move knight to e5, and out of nowhere, D's knights on c5 and e5 are so much better than D's knights on d5 and c7. So Arjun takes, I take back with the pawn here, we get rook d8, and now I play the move queen c1. Now the transformation here is such that black still has a bastion on d5, but now this pawn on e6 is a serious weakness, and on top of that, I have the two b's on the long diagonals, combined with a double stack on the c file, and if anybody is better here, it's white, and to make matters worse, white's moves are much easier, so with time pressure looming, I should be the one pressuring Arjun on the clock. So Arjun plays bishop h5, I go bishop g2, of course I want to keep the two b's, and now we get the move h6. Here I played the move bishop to f1, and I think this is a sign of how well I played this middle game phase, because bishop f1 is a top computer move, but there's a reason it's the best move. Now, one of the things at the higher levels, this will not be in the educational speed run for probably a couple thousand points for anybody who's watched some of those videos recently, is that what you try to focus on is where do pieces belong. Now, the knight on c5 is a really nice piece. It pressures the pawn, but it also doesn't do anything because this pawn is permanently protected. So what I would really like to do is put this knight on a better square. Basically, take the knight and put it somewhere better. Now, the obvious square that you would like the knight to get to, just to illustrate the point, is I would love to get this knight to d6, where I get the classic connect 5, as well as a bastion, with the knight here, and then the double stack on the c file is very effective. So that's one square I'd like the knight to get to. Now, another square that I'd like to get the knight to potentially, besides d6, is something like knight b3, knight d4, and then knight c6 here, forking the rooks and attacking the pawn. And even if the knight only gets to d4, there's now tremendous pressure on both these pawns, and the double stack on the c file is very menacing. So the two squares that I'd really like to get the knight to are either d6, d4, or c6. I should say these three squares. Ironically, they also form the classic L shape. So it's a classic L in this situation. So the reason I played bishop f1 here is that if I were to play knight b3 right away, black can go knight to a6, and suddenly these knights are very, very active. The knights are jumping towards the center of the board, and after I take the juicer, black plays rook a8, let's say I go bishop d4, now there's a move knight a b4 with the d3 square, a2 is hanging, and suddenly the knights come to action in a hurry. So when I go bishop to f1, the reasoning behind this move is that the knight on c7 is kind of dominated. There's no a6, b4. But additionally, even if this knight goes to b4, the d3 square is covered by the bishop. So the bishop really covers these critical squares for the two horses. It sort of suffocates them. The horses run out of squares. And at this point, it's very, very hard to defend. So Arjun plays king h7 here, and now I play the move knight to b3 here. I'm putting pressure on the horses. You'll notice the knight can't go to a6 in this position, and already here, I think from a practical human perspective, the game is lost. So Arjun plays rook c8. I take the pawn, we get rook a8, and now I go bishop back to f2. Knight b4 is still not a threat because that would hang the horse, and if the knight ever goes to b5, this is a blunder, as I can simply trade the towers and then go bishop takes knight, and after rook takes c1, takes, knight c5. Let's say black goes knight c7. White can play bishop to a5 here. The pawn on e6 is falling, and white is winning the game. So Arjun goes knight to a6, and now I play the very nasty move pawn to a3, restricting the horses here. There's no b4 square available, and now you start to fill the power of the b's here, as the bishop is always spying the knight has no squares to jump to, and at this point, black can almost resign. So Arjun plays rook takes rook, I take, he goes rook c8, and now I play the move queen d2. Now here Arjun plays queen to a4, which kind of loses on the spot, but already here he's feeling very, very down, I think, about this position. He's down a pawn here on the queen side. These horses are very sad here, they just don't have any oxygen, and therefore he plays queen a4. Now of course we're also both below 5 minutes, and one thing that Arjun was doing that I noticed is he was moving very, very quickly in this situation, I think primarily because he didn't want to get super low on time, but also because he was thinking if he got me down to 30 seconds, maybe I make a blunder, maybe I fall apart like I did in the Weisenhaus tournament. So Arjun goes queen to a4. Now I play knight to d4, attacking the pawns on e6 and f5, and here Arjun plays the move bishop f7, guarding the pawn on e6. Now after this move, all hope is gone forever, but already here it's very hard to play. After queen takes a3, knight takes e6, knight a b4, I can simply go knight d4. There's no kebab with rook c2 here. Knight covers it. I pressure the pawn on f5, and additionally I'm threatening to start pushing p up the e file to win the game. So Arjun plays the move bishop to f7 here, and now I decide to sack the horse temporarily with knight takes pawn. He takes, and now I go e6, which attacks the bishop and then the knight at the same time here. Arjun takes, I take back, and now we get the move knight c7. Here I play rook to e5, we get knight f6, and now I play the move bishop to h3, pressuring this pawn on f5. Arjun goes knight g4, I play queen to d3 here, putting more pressure on this diagonal. We get knight takes rook, and now I play queen takes pawn, checking the king and attacking the rook on c8. Arjun goes knight g6, I take the tower, we get knight d5, and here I play the very calm positional move queen to c1, guarding the pawn on a3, but also stopping any ideas like queen d1 check, no sacks on f4 either. So with the dust having settled here, I still keep the two b's versus the two ponies, but also I have two extra pawns, and with the weak king and all these open diagonals here, I should be able to convert. Arjun plays knight e7, and here I play the very calm move bishop f1. Now this is a move that is probably not necessary, but when I go bishop to f1, I'm simply protecting the king here. I have the two b's which stop any checks, but also now the bishops have all kinds of diagonals to go to, and at this point I knew I was going to win the game. Arjun goes knight to f6, I play queen b1, king h8, and now I play the move queen to b4. Now at this point, I'm more than happy to trade the queens off the board, because with the two b's versus the two ponies here, and two extra pawns here, white is simply winning. A sample line is knight to d5, b5, knight d7, and now I go bishop g2, knight b6, bishop c6, and the knights are completely stuck on these two squares here. I'm going to bring the king up and start pushing p's here. Sample line, let's say we get something like this, with takes, king g2, and eventually here what you'll notice is I end up with the wide peepos. The knights are still completely tied down by the two b's here, and white will win very shortly. So Arjun plays queen d7, and now I play a4. I finally start to push my p on the queen side here. With the two b's on these squares, you'll notice they cover all the pawn pushes forward up the board, so at this point it's all but over. Arjun plays knight f5, I go check, king h7, and now I play the move queen b5, once again offering the trade of the queens. Arjun plays queen e6, here I go bishop c4, queen c8, and now I play the move bishop d3, pinning the knight on f5. Arjun goes g6, and here I play the move queen c5, not necessary. I could take the knight, I could also go a5, but again, I don't want to give any counterplay with knight g4, where suddenly with the queen c1 check and these knights, maybe a small miracle is possible. So I go queen to c5 here. Arjun plays queen d7. He should have played queen to e6. This is the last moment to try and keep the game going. But after queen to e5 here, now the queen struggles. If you go queen f7 to guard the horse, I can simply take, and now I have three extra pawns, and I win very soon. And if black were to play queen c6, same thing, I take. If you go queen e5, takes, and knight d5, now again, I start pushing the p up the board. And with the wide peepos and the two b's combining, this is GG, why not? So Arjun plays queen d7, and now I play the move queen to a7 here, pinning the queen on the 7th rank. The bishop guards the queen, and Arjun decides to resign the game. With queens coming off, as I mentioned before, I simply am free to push my p up the board, and this will just be worthless. There's just no chance to save the game. So after queen to a7, I get a huge win in the second quarterfinal game against Arjun. This means that I advance to the semifinals tomorrow, where I'll be playing either Jan Nepomniachtchi or Vincent Keimer. One of those two guys will win in their tiebreaker. At any rate, it's a huge win for me. It feels like this kind of makes up for some of the stuff that happened in the previous freestyle event. But at any rate, we're through to the semis. I'm one of the last 4 players still alive with a chance to win the grand prize of $200,000. So, on that note, I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap from the second game of the knockout portion, or the quarterfinals, I should say, of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour being held here in Paris. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with a recap after I play either Jan or Vincent tomorrow in the first game of the semifinals. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your evening, and until next time, see you soon. Have a good one. Bye.